Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to A Gathering Place, brought to you by the Galagichi Chamber of Commerce. We have a very interesting show today, and we're going to have folks joining us, hopping on when they can get in, because these are very busy, active folks out here changing South Carolina, changing the world. And I'm just very happy that they were able to find some time in their busy day to join us and share with us what they are working on. And I first want to introduce Mr. Lawrence Nathaniel Dishawn. Lawrence Dishawn Nathaniel. That's how I usually see you. So
Yeah,
I know. How are you doing today?
no, tired, but I'm
You're
good. I'm
tired?
very good today. Yeah.
Tired, but good. Yeah, you've been a busy person. I'm not gonna call you young man after the conversation we had just before we hopped on. I can, but I'm not gonna do that because you making things happen out here. So you're tired. All right.
Yes, I'm tired. I'm
Yeah,
physically tired.
you're physically tired, so you're not mentally
Yes.
tired.
Oh no, not mentally, physically. I'm
All
physically
right.
tired.
All right, very good. So, folks, today we are talking to Lawrence about his activism and what's going on in South Carolina because he is actually playing a vital part. And just I've been kind of sitting back watching because I've been locally doing my thing and haven't had a chance to make it up to Columbia yet. But I actually going to be in Columbia very soon. So you got to let us know the next thing you're doing, and hopefully I can join you. But I've been watching from afar, and more importantly, I've been supporting from afar, and everything that you've been doing. And immediately after the George Floyd murder, you organized a march in Columbia, and I believe it was the "I Can't Breathe" march.
Hmm.
And it was very interesting what happened. It was very effective and peaceful. And then things kind of changed after everything was over. And I know you've been out there talking about it, but I wanted you to talk about what made you decide to do this march, what happened during the march, the aftermath, and what are the long-term strategies that you see for South Carolina. I do have a list of things that you posted, so we could go through those also. But first, tell me, and I've known you for a while. So, but tell me what led to this march. What really sparked you with this march in South Carolina?
Uh, it's time to do something in my own state. Time to do something in my own community. A lot of things that learning, going out of state and organizing outside of South Carolina, and learning the mistakes outside of South Carolina. You have a sense of vision and a sense of idea that you can do it within South Carolina. You can understand that you can bring change to your own state, and you shouldn't have to be scared to do so. But it was because I see the pain. And in the middle of planning the national march in Washington, I'm thinking I need to do something here in South Carolina. But with the lack of support that I usually get from certain people here in South Carolina, I really didn't think that it was going to turn out to be what it was. So yeah,
The size and magnitude of what it was and the
yeah.
impact. So
I thought
you
it was like 50 people that was going to show up. Yeah, about
and you
50.
would have been happy with 50. How many people showed up? Do you know? Do you have an estimate of how many people showed up? I know it was a crowd, but
Our official numbers had us at about just a little over 5,000 people.
hey, congratulations. That's huge. Because I actually have organized a rally at the state house, and I think 60 people showed up, and I had national press there. So you can,
Yeah.
it was very interesting. Yeah, I got interviewed and stuff. It's been a while. It was back when Mark Sanford went on his Appalachian
Uh,
Trail hike. Yeah. So I understand, but you know something, that too was a victory. So I understand where you're coming from. You're like, if I get 50 people here, I'm good, because that's
mhm.
50 more than what I had say yesterday. And that's how people start. You got to do it. You just got to do it. So congratulations that you had that turnout and everything. So what was your goal for that march?
The goal was for the march was to give African Americans in this state a space. And I want to clarify that it was a state march. It was not just a city march. Hence the reason why we encompassed the city hall portion of it. And we had our local activists from around Columbia out there getting their voices heard at City Hall. And we marched to the State House where we had people from across the state up there to speak, even gave the mic to people that wasn't even on the program to speak. But the overall goal was to give African Americans a voice so that way they can feel a sense of change within their community, and to give them a space of, I can do it too. And to bring attention to the causes, to end police brutality, to bring the body cam mandated law up to front, to pass policies that work for the people and not just the system. But prior to doing the march, it was the post it constantly coming up on Facebook that, I'm a good cop and I'm not a bad cop. We wanted to tell people that, listen, it's not good cop versus bad cop in this situation. It's a institution that has a history of racism, hate, bigotry, so forth and so on. It is a toxic institution that needs to be changed. You working for that institution. So that is the reason why we're out here, is to change the institution and the system. And the fact that it's young people that's leading the movement is what it needed in the beginning. And now so many people in Colombia have woken up. So many young people who have never organized before organizing. And it was because they they feel like they can do it better, and they can make their voices heard too.
And I can appreciate that, because so we had a march here in Georgetown. I think it was the Saturday after you had yours, and I was asked to be an advisor. It's the shortest way, the best way to put it, and got in there. And let me tell you something. It was meltdowns. It was people working against us, the usual suspects working against these young folks. But we got it done. But there were some hurt feelings. There's some good feelings, but we got it done. But I had to really tell someone, you really need to listen to these young folks. This is why what's happening in this country right now, why there are fires, we're burning down the country right now, is because no one listened to people who were crying out in pain, who were crying out that our brothers and sisters were being killed by police, through police brutality. And Colin Kaepernick, who's a hero of mine, knelt down because of this. He told you in a
Mhm.
peaceful manner. And there were other means and methods that people were saying, listen and see what's going on. And the country refused to see it. The country refused to listen. And this was to a black leader that I was having this conversation with, who who we had to come to some terms together. We had to get this straight together, because it was like, well, who are they? It's They're human beings. Let's start at that point. They're human beings, and every human being has a right to be heard. Then, because you have decided that you're going to be a community leader, they're your constituents. You may not be elected, but if you decide that you're going to be a community leader, you have constituents also. And your first number one job is to listen to your constituents. And this is what people are telling you. So I'm saying all this is it's a huge problem. It's not just, let's say, a white thing. It's a black thing too, because our leadership for too long has let us down by not listening. Simply listening. And I'm
And
good to go ahead, go ahead.
And
I,
after the march, like the day after the march was over with, so many people was mad. So many people still are mad. But I came to the conclusion that that I really don't care anymore if you're upset or not, because I what I heard all in the background was, we was working on something and we was doing this, and you have to sneak through the background, and you have to go unnoticed, and you don't let your enemy know something. That's why Columbia, South Carolina was asleep for so long. That's why you're now seeing young activists standing up and rising up and having their voice heard. Is because no one wants to keep going backstepping, having secret conversations. The point of this whole thing is about transparency and accountability. You can't have transparency if you're trying to remain secret too. That's just not how it works, and that's just not how leadership develops. And then I get the question of, who is this? Who is he? Who is he? He's not from Columbia. I lived in Columbia for 10 years. Cynthia Hardy's not from Columbia. Mayor Benjamin's not from Columbia, but they're leaders in these communities. So, I mean, like, come on, y'all. I mean, we all share the same land. And I mean, if I see a leader not standing up over there in the colonies and I live over here in Meadow Lake, I'm going to go over here to the colonies and I'm going to stand up for the colonies, because I live in the same city that you live in. So
Yeah.
just because you come from this community, we all have the same issues sometimes.
Yeah.
And police officers are in all of our communities, and especially our poor communities as well. To the point of over there in Casey, including the colonies and low income neighborhoods, they're supposed to have community centers where you go for meetings and you have community programs. Those community centers in most places are turned now to police departments where police officers are now using the for their offices. That's a sign of gentrification. But you want to
Mm-hmm.
tell them that you just took their space away from them for them to go in and have programs just for more policing in their community.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just over the whole staying quiet thing, because staying quiet has kept South Carolina asleep for so long. After Saturday, I have been proud of people like CJ Jones, who led the Million Man March, and Ryan Mendez, a part of Empower SC. I'm proud of every last one of them because each of them stood up, each of them stepped up. Now it's about us coming together and actually making change happen, because we can constantly be on the news, we can be having these conversations in the background, but the young organizers out there that was on the ground that's not a part of these policy conversations, they came and said, hey, what are y'all doing? We don't know what you're doing. We want to be involved. That is just how we are as young people going up to the Democratic Party and trying to get something changed with our party, or going to different organizations. I was upset when faith leaders wasn't the first people to stand up. Usually after these type of incidents happen, you start seeing people march across the country. The first people that you see is your faith community to stand up. None of the faith leaders stood up until after Saturday. Why do we have to wait for something peaceful that turns wrong in order for you to listen and to actually get up and do something?
I'm actually surprised that you were expecting faith leaders to lead on this.
I'm a member of faith, so I am deep
Well,
down in the heart of the church.
I am
Yeah, so
also,
I'm
but
always looking for our faith leaders, both young and old, to lead, because that's something that I've always seen, from MLK being a faith leader himself, to going to the MLK marches, to the bringing down the flag, to the Charleston, to the Ravenel Bridge marches. All of those was led by community and faith leaders. So to see them not step up first was another issue.
we're going to get into a lot of stuff because this is the kind of conversation we need to have. Just we need to have, and even in the civil rights movement, I was in a meeting or even on one of my shows. I think it was the show I had, a gathering place where Jamar Brown and Brandon Upson, they were on, and this is why they're coming back. We're going to do it monthly just to have conversation, because even in
Hmm.
the civil rights movement, any movement that you saw, people just got together and they talked. They talked about strategy, but they talked about their experiences. They talked about books. They talked about literature, faith, etc. They talked. They listened
Hmm.
to music. They talked. That's why music is actually a vital part of civil rights movement. Um, but the reason I mention the faith leaders is, and I am not accusing all faith leaders, because one of the faith leaders that I follow is Reverend William Barber Jr. with the Poor People's Campaign. Uh, so this is not all faith leaders, but too many faith leaders are conservative in their response to what's going on. And this is one reason we also have this response that's going on, because the faith leaders, too many of our leaders, including faith leaders, are more in love with access to power than their community.
Hmm.
And Martin Luther King Jr., when he was assassinated, was only supported by 13% of African American churches. Now, yeah, 50 years later, when he has made into a simple caricature of who he was, you would think all faith leaders just loved him, and that includes
Hmm.
black and white, and that's simply just not true. And I am a firm believer of really not only knowing history, but understanding the context of history and the nuance of histories so it can inform what we're doing now. So that's why I was asking you. I'm surprised that you thought that, but this is why we have these conversations. So I can learn from you, you can learn from me, so we can both learn together and grow and become more of a force within this movement that we're seeing happening right now. And I'm just putting that out there and everything. Anything you want to say about that, feel free to say it.
No, you're completely fine. And I tell our 40 and up folks that, we're here to listen. Miss Maddie Thomas, the leader for the Black Women's Caucus, we was
Hmm.
on a phone conference one night, and she said it best herself that we're standing on her shoulders, to lead this movement. Let them guide us, but that's the key word. Let them guide us, but still give us our space to speak,
We need to
because
respect you.
a difference that we have, another issue that we have, is our older Black men, younger Black men.
Hmm.
The older Black men will come in and not try to give the younger Black men a voice in the community because they feel like they hold the ground. It's no longer holding a ground anymore, because we're all suffering. Like, literally every last one of us are suffering. So what makes you the leader and the right for you to have simple control of an issue when it's all of our issues? And if you had control of this issue for 4, 8, 10, 12 years and the issue still hasn't been changed, obviously you need to get the hell out the way. Sorry. Obviously you need to get out the
That's
way
all right. Hmm.
and let someone else take over, someone else that have brighter ideas. The thing with me is that I'm a visionary, and that's one of the things that South Carolina is missing, is a lot of visionaries, and a lot of younger people are visionaries. Me, I'm more radical in my approach. Others, they are more organized on their approach, which is just the way that the world works. But what happens when we connect both of those young energies together, and we have our older folks that's behind us and guiding us along the way? We'll create a powerful movement that no one can break.
I actually agree with you on that, and I add that um has an older generation, and I can say that I'm 55. All right, it's in 55 and older. In some ways, we have failed our younger generation because we have not shared with them our learned experiences, our knowledge. We've held it tight because somehow we think that actually we lose power holding it tight. But we actually, when you hold something tight, you end up choking it and it ends up dying. But if you loosen it and you broaden your footprint and you bring more along, it actually gives you more power. And I actually had this conversation today about a particular meeting with someone where I said I'm stepping back because we have young voices who want to be heard and they're moving on something. Let them be heard. Let them be at the table. They have to be at the table to hear and to learn and to speak because they have something to share. No one here in this world knows everything, and that's something that I've been pushing, and I can understand. I'm outside enjoying my garden. I do it
Oh
outside.
yeah, I know. I
There's
see
a
you
mosquito
fighting them.
buzzing. I think I got it that time. Um, that when we don't share things, this is the way I put it. When you're older and if you don't share things, when you die, a library dies with you.
Hmm.
And we have to stop that. We have to open the libraries and share them, share that knowledge so that you're better informed, we're better informed, and then the community grows from there. It strengthens the community, it gives us more power. And what has happened in the last 20 to 40 years, because 20 years, about every 20 years, you have a new generation. Too many of us have not shared that knowledge, and that library dies and it's gone forever. And it has weakened the community. What I think is happening now is change is happening now, and change is happening now, and it's forcing us to open up. Those who haven't been open, it's forcing us to open up and share that knowledge. Because if you don't share that knowledge, you're going to be left behind. And then what
Hmm.
happens, it ends up being a spiritual death. You physically may be here, But spiritually, you're sitting in your house bitter, angry. Why the young people ain't listen to me? Why they didn't do this? And we don't want that. No one wants that. Everybody, like you said, we want all of us to work together so the community moves forward. So I'm glad to hear what you're thinking and where your thoughts are with that. So let's go back to the march and after the march, because I was reading some stuff online. You were on with Michael Bailey on the Minority Eye, and I was reading some of the comments, and I was just blown away because many of our folks, young, middle age, older, they're lost. I could just see there's a lot of hurt going on, but there's also that lack of knowledge, and they're striking out in anger. But what I'm glad to see is that you kept moving on. You kept meeting with people and leaders and community folks, and really, and more things started to happen. I know you said you're a visionary, but do you have a strategic plan? What is the vision? Where do you want this to go?
My vision for it is to connect all of the collectives and organizations together. That way we can all work on one accord and to have a people's agenda versus just focusing on one issue. But right now, no one wants to do that. So my goal right now is to launch three-step organizations: a political action committee, a nonprofit organization, and a Black media firm. People Demand
Okay.
Action, Political Action Committee, where we can actually go out in our community and focus on voter education, and we can go out and register voters, and we can come up with unique ideas that other organizations haven't came up with, and we can go and teach and train them how to march and how to protest and how to organize. We build one of our organizers build a huge toolkit for organizers now across the state to use that we're going to release in a couple of days. So yeah, and then have the our National Organization for Change, which is already active organization. We did a lot of work with Tom Steyer and so forth. But launching by launching that, we're able to actually do community work and create a fund that can actually do things that our city leaders and them don't want to do, such as build new community centers that's not just focused on park and recreations, or because a lot of people they miss the understanding of when we say that. A park is not going to work for a 13 to 14-year-old person, because yeah, at the age of 13 or 14, especially in the community I went to, I promise you I was not playing in nobody park. Also, the community centers with the basketball goals and the swimming pools. Not everyone likes to swim. Not every kid likes sports. Not every kid can play basketball. And it also sometimes a mental defect on some kids, especially kids without fathers. Um, when you have those type of things in those communities, because they look for those to play with, and there's not programs to go behind some of that stuff, and they're out there playing by themselves, it will leave that child a sense of loneliness and that sense of feeling. Also, we're able to expand out and do coding. I never heard a young girl or a young boy in a community say, I want to be a prostitute, I want to be a drug dealer. I hear them say, I want to be a firefighter, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a
Mm-hmm.
lawyer. Something happens in that community that changed their heads, and doing a rec center in a park won't lead them to a better set. It will get them physically healthy, but mentally healthy is what they need also. So why not put in these recreation centers, coding programs, what music studios. We expanded Richland County Library here, that has a lot of these free programs, but they're not to the access point of the community. A lot of these young kids can't hop on the city bus without their parents. So why not flip these smaller community centers and flip them to design after what the library has, and offer some of these programs? Work with our nail salons and our barber shops around here to offer free haircuts for those who are going for a job interview. So those type of stuff that we want to see. So by building a three-step organization, it will allow you to have a more expansive outreach, and it'll allow you to also get policy changes, build trust with your community, bring change to your community, and it will also allow you to organize. And then the Black media firm, Radical News, which launches in July, will be for Black voices, and diverse voices, where we can talk about issues that's important to us. But it gives a sense of a level for young journalists to have their voices heard, and for them to have a platform where they can run. And we just got our contract with Facebook Watch for that. So we're going to do a morning show. So I'm happy about that.
Congratulations.
So,
Congratulations.
but
I'm
it's
looking
about
forward to that. Yeah, it
changing
is.
South Carolina.
It is. And this is where you start. You start at the grassroots and you get it's a people
Hmm.
movement and you move from there. And you have to. Um so with so are these all going to be nonprofits or are you thinking about entrepreneurs also?
Radical news is being entrepreneurship. One of the things is with National Organization for Change back in 2000. And I wish Deanna was on here because she could have said it.
Yeah, she
That's how.
sent me a message. She sent me a message. There's something going on. She's trying to get
Uh,
home to get on. So
oh,
yeah.
okay. So I hope she do get a chance to hop on. So she do, she can tell you. But no, we came up with like several different ideas to fold under National Organization for Change, and that was the Humane Tax Initiative, and primarily putting heavy focus on the Bamberg County area.
Mhm.
Um, for business opportunities and especially business growth. And a lot of people will get mad when I say this because for some reason we have a land that is sacred spaces for us. So I'm talking about starting a Black Wall Street here in South Carolina type of change. And Bamberg County sits in the most least developed. It's the most least developed county, but it sits between the most developed areas currently in South Carolina. Dorchester, well, actually, Dorchester, Hampton, and Barnwell County are now becoming highly developed counties, leading into Charleston with the Volvo factory and so forth and so on.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
Bamberg is always getting skipped over.
Mhm.
Bamberg, Denmark Town is worth about total together half a million, if not close to about, yeah, about a half a million mark. If we buy that, we're able to, as an organization, own that city, which means that we're not going to charge you about 750 with rent. No, we're going to invite all the young entrepreneurs that we can to come in, start your business up. Only pay us $150 in rent, and as your revenue rises, and that's when your rent rises. And we're not talking about a jump in the gap of $100. We're talking about a small amount as you go up because it gives you an opportunity to grow. But that small
Mhm.
amount will then go back into the organization. We want to do a lot more than just do basic community activities. We're talking about providing affordable housing, building new parks, starting programs, starting centers that starting skill centers. In 2000, and Obama, second to his last State of the Union address, he talked about dream centers. And inside those dream centers, they had economic classes, civic classes, they had job training skills, they had second chance programs, even flipping our prison systems from prison systems to prison communities, which offered them a step program of once you inside prison, you have a program that will introduce you into society. So those are some of the
Mhm.
stuff that we want to do as as an organization, which will then help build revenue not only for the state, for the community, but for people. And then we're also able to start hiring organizers and those who want to get involved in media and film and photography. Our mission over the next 10 years is to have South Carolina be the leading forefront for African Americans,
I
especially
am
when it comes to their goals.
I am so excited for you because that is why I started the Gallagher Chamber of Commerce. It's that social impact entrepreneurship,
Mhm.
putting people before profits, in place impact where you are impacting your community while you create a business. And you can do that. And I think people get confused, think I have to have millions of dollars to impact my community. You can impact your community from day one.
Mhm. Ask
And
me.
you impact it by looking at what you just said. The rent is one great example.
Mhm.
You meet people where they are and you give them the space to grow. And as they grow, and they're consistent and sustainable, the rent increases with them. It is basic, it is simple, and it's a new take on capitalism. Um, and it's not new, but we're bringing it forward and we're modernizing it and taking it into the future. I'm totally
Mhm.
with you. There are programs that do that. I'm actually now the Gallagher Chamber just finished talking yesterday to my education guy who we're going to be providing educational courses because I have found through the Gallagher Chamber of Commerce going out and talking to my folks on the grassroots level, just sitting in kitchens with folks
Mhm.
who are I'm baking cakes And Christmas, I get all these bunch of orders, but they're really not creating a business and don't understand that process. And that's where we have to meet folks in the kitchen, sitting with them and tell this is how
Hmm.
you can do it, not only to make a profit, but to make it sustainable. And
Yeah.
then and then the next level is then you're trying to think of how can I leave this to my family? How do I bring my family into it? So when I'm gone, which we all hope is a long time from now, you're building your
Hmm.
business, that I'm leaving something to them. And that goes towards not education. I could pay for any type of education I want for my kids, whatever education they want. They can go do it. They can keep running the family business if they want to. Uh, but that's how you do that. Then goes to generational wealth.
Hmm.
Then you start thinking in terms of buying buildings and buying land. And that's but you got to start there. But you got to have what you say that foothold. That's what you're talking about giving people
Hmm.
through buying, then turning around and say, "This is how we're gonna
Yeah,
work."
and then the smart thing for people to do, a lot of people saying, hey, I want to do this, but I don't have the land to do it. um, what we developed a system a year ago that we never got a chance to use yet, but we're going to use it, is to go ahead and buy tax delinquent land, or reach out to the owners of those properties to say, hey, can we have this piece of property, or can we buy it from you to the price of taxes, so that way we can put an affordable housing here, or a community park, or a resource center here. You'll be surprised the people answers to that. It's the point, if you don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah.
Chicago has a revitalization project in Chicago where, if you are residents of Chicago, you're not allowed to turn them into houses and overcharge a certain amount of rent, but you can buy the pieces of property for $1, and you can turn them into community spaces, parks, libraries, affordable housing. But it's for $1 you can buy it from, and it has to go underneath a nonprofit organization. So those type of programs, I want to see those happen here in South Carolina. South Carolina being a rural city, Deanna Barry, who's out there fighting for clean water in
Mhm.
Denmark, she's out
Mhm.
there also fighting to make sure to implement a permanent plan. And a part of that permanent plan is to get the solar power water panels onto people homes, so that way they have constant free water. I kind of went a step further to actually see a solar powered water farm that we can also connect to the HBCUs that are currently down there, to provide job skills and job trainings for them, also utilizing it. And then emergency triage centers. One of the things that I hate is that our congressional offices are split up, and we are spending millions of dollars on congressional offices when these congressional offices can be inundated with inside our community centers. And we can have a community center that has a healthcare center and attached to it. Now they have these new things called mobile triage centers. What will help with COVID-19, especially in rural areas, is having these mobile triage centers. They have about 4 rooms, including the waiting room, and the rooms are big enough to hold at least 4 family members for a sleepover inside there. They're mobile, they're easy to be picked up, and they're inexpensive. If our state was to invest into that, you know how many lives we will save from COVID-19, how many lives we will save from HIV and AIDS, how many lives we will save from dementia, Alzheimer's, and kidney disease and cancer, which is most of my school teachers that passed away of cancer from Banbury and Orangeburg.
And that goes to environmental justice and
Oh yeah.
green renewable energy, cleaning up these brown sites
Hmm.
and all. And that's something I'm working on too. I love your vision because I also am a visionary, and putting the place things pieces in place
Hmm.
here in my hometown. I have even a bigger vision. Mine's going beyond Georgetown, and I have a business plan. So I'm sitting here listening to you thinking, wow, it's wonderful. And I support you because one, you have a vision, you have a plan. It's putting the bricks in the foundation.
That's the hardest part,
It is
is
hard. It is
putting the
hard.
bricks in there, because
Yeah.
I'm always been the type of person that, growing up, it's always been trust with me. And it's always been mistakes that I made in the past and people hold them against you. Yeah, that part too. So it's always been that thing. And then trying to actually build that foundation and putting people in place that won't take that foundation from you. That is the issue with among a lot of young folks. because once you reach a certain level here, and if you're not knowledgeable enough, and that's my issue too, is when us as young people are not knowledgeable enough, they can take it away from you.
We're going to talk offline too, but I want you to know, um, it's become almost a cliche, but it's the truth to this. Is that mistakes are lessons learned. We all have made mistakes. Probably with more with young people now because of social media, your mistakes are probably going to follow you. Because believe me,
Mm-hmm.
it's nobody in this world, including myself, it's nobody who can say they didn't do something stupid. The difference is these days with me, I did some stuff that some people maybe say stupid. Me, I'm like lesson learned, but that comes with age. But but look, it's not on Facebook. It's not on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And people use that against you, but that's actually their issue. That is not your issue. Yours is to look at that vision and how can I make it happen? And you to stay consistent and focused on that vision and keep putting the bricks in place. Because when you are on that type of journey, you will attract people who are also on that type of journey and they are here to help you. And if you sit back and you look, and I'm sure you've already done that and you've noticed, okay, I was getting hit over here, and you were. I mean, let's just bring it out, Lawrence. Okay, when you did that first march, people were furious and mad.
Oh
Who is
yeah.
he? I saw it,
Mm-hmm.
but you kept going, and those voices will disappear. They'll go to the side and disappear, and the voices that you should hear and the people you need to connect to will come to you. You will
Mm-hmm.
still have to be discerning because there's always going to be that one or two who are going to try to get in the circle who don't have the best intentions. Life teaches you that, and you will soon the faster you recognize that, the faster you will see that person and cut them out. That has happened to me also. It took me longer. It took me longer. I was in my 40s where it started hitting me. I got to get rid of people, and I'm still doing that because that's part of your journey. It's like the train at the station. I told folks when I started the Gallagher Chamber of Commerce in 2018, I did two things. I went to a class at the College of Charleston, so you will always be learning, always learn,
Mm-hmm.
to learn about social impact entrepreneurship. And I did, and it brought a lot of good things to me. But then also, I went to therapy because I suffer from depression,
Same
and I
here.
have since college off and on. And I knew I needed to personally get stronger, deal with the depression period I was in at the time. And the combination of those two things, me working it out, put me on that journey I'm on now. So, and it taught me life is a journey. So
Mm-hmm.
all of that was like the train at the first station, and I was putting the oil in, greasing the wheels, painting it, cleaning it up, getting it ready, and then it started pulling out from that station. And as you continue on that journey, you're gonna go to another station. You're gonna pick up some people. Then at the
Mm-hmm.
next station, you're gonna drop off some people. And then sometimes you got to go downhill, and sometimes you got to go up the mountain on that journey. And that's what life is all about. It's not about the beginning and the end, it's about the journey. And you have a choice of what station you're going to start from, what station you're going to end, and what stations you're going to slide into and pick up and slide out of and leave some people too. So it is about free will. And a lot of us never come to that realization. We never
Mm-hmm.
come to that realization about the journey we're on. So a lot of us are lost. And that's what I saw, like the pushback and stuff on you. And I think you're at a point where you're starting your, and you may know this. I'm just talking, correct me if I'm wrong. Your journey is being revealed to you and you're doing it. And you're doing it. Because I've seen since then some things happening with you. You're telling me some things, and I see some things happening. And that's why I said it's time. Let me invite Lawrence and Deanna on my show because I want to hear what they do, and I want to see. I want people need to see young people who really have vision and putting the bricks in the foundation. And that's why I wanted you guys to come on and just talk about it. And this could happen at any age. We focus on young
Mm-hmm.
people, but this goes back to our beginning of our conversation with the older folks with the knowledge because they've been on that journey and they've got knocked. Some of us have gotten stuck in place at one station and we need to push to get to the next thing, to get back
Yeah,
on
some
our
of them
journey.
got pushed the last 2 Saturdays ago.
I'm sure. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's okay. And some of us gonna
Mhm.
be, and you know something. You know what else? Everybody not gonna finish the journey with us. Everybody not gonna finish this journey because it's your journey, it's my
Mhm.
journey, and sometimes the journeys do interconnect and come together, and some of them they don't. That's life. Everybody's not going to finish the journey with us, but there's a lesson in that also. Why are they not finishing the journey with us? And let me make sure that I don't do what they're done so I can keep on my journey and finish it. So I mean, I see a lot with you, what's going on with you and everything, and I applaud you. Keep it up, keep it up. So you posted something yesterday. Let's get back to that. We're being a little
Mhm.
philosophical now, but that's a good thing too. That's why we have these conversations.
Mhm.
And you posted something, and I shared them. Let me go ahead and pull that up really quickly. So you said we are here to change South Carolina. Together we can. So I think
Mhm.
the beginning is kind of focusing on our criminal justice system, our police, the police departments, eliminate excessive force, end violent policing practices, develop a crisis intervention team, require police, not cities, to be liable for misconduct and violent settlements, establish for civilian oversight structures, and take the profit out of policing. And I'm going to go back to take the profit out of policing because did you have a chance to see what the Republicans proposed this morning?
No, I haven't had a chance to, but I
And
did get it in my email.
a huge portion of it is incentivizing the police to do what they should be doing anyway, to do what's right. So incentivizing, for those listening audience who don't know, that's just basically saying we're going to increase the police budget. That's basically incentivizing is we're going to give the police more money to do the right thing.
Mm-mm. What we need to do with the police officers is give them to the police department less money, officers more money. Officers are underpaid, and many local districts, local counties, towns. So they also need that. But the access money that going into the police department needs to be switched to community refunds, meaning that hiring counselors, starting initiatives, being more involved with the community. And when we talk about developing oversight committee, a lot of people are thinking that we're talking about the basic oversight committees as picked by the elected officials. You can't have changes if the elected officials are picking who is
Or
making
picking
the
the people who
changes.
are going to watch them. Yeah, because
So
that's why
one
they're picking them. Yeah.
so when we talk about an actual oversight, and I wanted to say this first, the policies itself was not just written by me. I only had my hands in like four of those points out of most of these policies. The rest of them was written by other members from around the state and different
Very
communities.
good.
So I didn't have a voice in it by myself, and it was awesome professional people, white, black, brown, yeah, who helped with these policies. But creating an actual oversight committee board that is actually elected by the people. It is free to run. It is free to file. So basically, what it is that people in each district that is represented by a city council person or a county council person can pick one person to represent them underneath that city council or county person. That person will then will then be over a portion of that district as an oversight committee for police conduct, and specifically for minority communities as a whole. And what that is we basically can go inside and get all the research and data and put it into one system where we can actually point out the issues and find out the impacts that needs to be made and how changing. Because a lot of times we go in the community and we say we remove this person out, we just remove the problem. But the sidewalks are still crumbling, the street lights are still going dead, the children still has no activities, and crime is just going to be on the rise because you're moving people out of one community because you want to build new apartment complexes and throw them into a
Gentrification.
community that you
Yeah.
only put a band-aid over.
Yeah.
So that's
You're only pushing them. from
Mm-hmm.
one place to another. You're not solving the problems. That's
Yeah.
one thing about gentrification. Usually does not benefit the people who've been there long term.
And these people staying there for generations and generations. And over here in the Booker T. Washington area of Richland County, uh, down there on the Beltline area, that's right near the Colony section, they can have a crossing guard there, just like our white rich communities have crossing guards in their communities. And if you go to places like Atlanta, you can just drive down the street and there go a crossing guard in one of the rich neighborhoods or the upper class neighborhoods. But you go to the poor neighborhood, you're reading in the newspaper every other month that someone was just hit by a car.
Do you think people realize that these are by choice? That somewhere a decision maker has said we're just
Hmm.
simply not going to put that over there. And what irks me is when they say we don't have the funding to do that. Well, somehow we could find trillions of dollars to give tax breaks to billionaires and millionaires, even during a pandemic. But we could only give $1,200 to regular folks for four
And
months.
that's one of the
That's a
things that.
decision. We have
Hmm.
the money. It's our priorities are messed up, and we don't have the political will. But the money is there.
The money will always be there. The thing about it is people mindset today has been trained to be so messed up that the young folks understand that if it takes 3 hours to print two gold coins, and each gold coin is worth $2 trillion, I'm quite sure you can print, or you can
You
make
print it.
more
You
gold
print
coins.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
you
print
print
it.
it.
You do it.
And they
Yeah.
use the term of it will devalue money. It will only devalue money because you said it would devalue money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Realistically, that money and that debt is corporation money and corporation debt. That debt, that whatever $23 trillion debt that we have, doesn't belong to any
So,
of us.
so
It
what people
belongs.
don't, yeah, what people don't understand, the value money is given. That's a social contract.
Mm-hmm.
That's a social contract. We have decided, or tradition, or the law has decided. They decide that this paper that's going to be designed a certain way has value. That's it.
And,
Somebody
and we
had
can
to make a decision.
easily change it.
That's a social contract that we decide that the dollar I take to go spend in the store to buy gum, that's value. But if I decide it's a 50 cents value, then I have 50 cents value. That's
Mm-hmm.
a social contract. Which means if it's a social contract, the contract can be rewritten. The
And that's
contract can be changed. But we're not trained. That's why it's important that they had to destroy or hurt public education, because they took critical thinking out of it. It's all interconnected, and people need to realize that they don't want you thinking. They want to rush you back to work during a pandemic, because if you are rested and have time to think, you will say the status quo needs to end. So what do we do during the pandemic? We
that
got to
is
get
what
them back to
happening
work.
right now.
And that's what's
That,
happening right now, is that people
mm-hmm.
had enough time to sit and
And
rest
listen,
and listen and pay attention. And then the match was George Floyd's murder. But the
mm-hmm.
fuel was already there. And most people don't realize that, because we still haven't had enough time to really sit back and really realize what's going on. But something's wrong. You're just still working out the details of what's wrong. That's why they had to
Mm-hmm.
rush. That's why they have to stow confusion with pandemic. Don't wear the mask. The president not wearing the mask. That creates confusion in the mind, and then you don't have time to really think, oh, why are they trying to rush us back to work? Because once you working two, three, four jobs, you don't have time to rest and wonder why you working two, three, or four jobs. Why am I getting paid $7.25 an hour and I should be getting $15 an hour?
And you're right about that.
You can't have rested people. When you are so busy just starting trying to survive, you cannot thrive. This is a
Mm-hmm.
very dangerous. And I told people at the end of our rally, so they had me come up to do the register and vote, speech. And I got up and I told them, I'm not here to tell you to register and vote. I'm telling you to get educated and engaged in the process. I need you to show up to city and county council meetings. I need you to go to commissions and committee meetings and need to become a part of that. Because once you get educated and engaged, I trust the people that they will get registered and they will vote because they would want to change the system. But they have to get it is voting gives you power, but knowledge makes you dangerous.
And that is true.
And people are starting to awaken to that. It's not, people say woke. Are you really woke? Because when you're woke, you're educated, you have knowledge, and you are informed, and you're going to strategize and make better decisions for you and your family and your community. It is all connected. You cannot disconnect any of that.
Mm-hmm.
But go
And
ahead.
you're right about it.
Lawrence, you got me hot. This is a conversation, but these are the type of conversations we need to have. And then we need to sit back and then
Mm-hmm.
be quiet because you're there. You're there. You got it. You know, and you're putting it to work. That's what
Yeah.
I like
I
about it.
just
You're putting it to
I
action.
just want, and one of the things is we have those visionary people that need help. And you know what I told a lot of people, especially black men, especially the ones that complained about the Saturday march. I was like, all y'all complain, and all y'all want to talk about how y'all want to work with black men, and then we need to stand together with young black men. But that day, did any of y'all come up to me and ask to help? Or what do you need help with, my brother? Or
Yeah.
anything. But now you want to be mad and upset with this. And then they're like, well, you didn't reach out. All right. If you have, similar to the NAACP, my job is not to reach out to you because half of the young people don't even know that you exist. So my job is to make sure that we are working together. But if the recent history shows that you don't want to work with people outside your organization, what makes you think that we as young people are going to waste our time to go back and keep asking you for help? And then you get mad at us because we want to step up and just be like, heck, we're just going to go out here and do it. We're going to go out here and shut down I-95 if we need to. We're just going to do it because obviously they're not moving fast enough for us, and processes are not working at all. It's the process that is holding young people, that was holding young people back. But when you put young people and you force them to stay inside, and the only thing they have is social media and TikTok and the news 24/7, especially the ones that live with their parents, something is going to click in their mind because they're now getting the understanding that something is actually wrong.
Yeah,
Because
they got the time to
before
see it,
we
to
was
really see
so
it.
confused. Mhm.
Hmm.
We was in the movie theaters. We really didn't get to see it in the movie theater. We was at the restaurants, hanging out with our friends on yachts and on boats. But the moment that we had a chance to sit down, we got a chance to wake up to say, our old people ain't moving fast enough. It's time for us to go. But I would say, there are old people who want to move out there. They just don't have the strength to move. So they need us
They
for us
are,
to
and
move it.
they're
There are
people.
those
They
older
are.
folks that need that.
We know. I guess I don't want people to think we're generalizing. There are people out there doing the work who want to continue doing the work, who want to share their knowledge. It's when you start connecting those people, it's when you see movement. Let me go back to the NAACP because I am a member of the NAACP, and I just became
Hold
co-chair
on,
of
wait.
the
I
state.
lost you just a little bit.
All right. Am I back? Can you hear me?
No,
I
let
can
me
hear
see
you.
something. Oh, you hear my car? I'm sorry.
I can hear your car. I
Yeah,
can
I
hear you.
can't hear you though.
You can't hear me. You might
Nope.
have to. You might have to back out and come back in,
Let me see. That's probably. Hold on.
or hit. You didn't accidentally mute it, did you? So we're waiting
All
because
right.
Lawrence. Can you hear me?
Try it now.
Can you hear me?
Nope. Still can't hear you. I probably do have to come back and come back in.
Go ahead. I'll talk while you
All
do
right.
that.
I'll be
Go out and
right
come
back.
back in. All right. So while Lawrence is going out and he's going to come back in so he can hear me, um, we're just going to talk. I'm going to ask her because he mentioned the NAACP, and I want to talk to him about that and how we can reach out to the young folks again. I'm going to wait till he comes back in that we before I ask him that question, so I don't repeat myself. And I also want to talk to him about the young people and their if they're aware of what's going on with Santee Cooper, which is the state-owned electric company, electric utility, and that's a huge thing that a lot of our community we are not aware of. So hopefully we can get him back in. I see him coming in now. All right. Are you?
All right,
Can you
there
hear
we
me
go.
now? All right, very
Yep,
good.
yep.
Who I tell you that phone, the phone. So I had two
Yeah.
questions. One first, you
Hmm.
mentioned the NAACP, and I just want you to know, I this year, to be earlier this year, I became the co-chair of the state NAACP's Environmental and Climate Justice Committee, Environmental Energy and Climate Justice Committee, and we work on environmental issues. And I want to get the young people involved. Um, this is an opportunity to get organized on the state level,
Hmm.
branch by branch. The environment is huge. Everything is interconnected, even the environment. And I like to say, healthy environment, healthy people, healthy communities.
Hmm. And
So,
that's how it
so
is.
how do I reach the young people? And then I have the second question too. But how do I reach young people? Tell me, what do we need to do?
Young people are tricky. I can't speak for every young person because
I
all young people
understand.
have different minds. But young people like me just show up, and when we come and ask for help, help. That's one key thing. Show us that we have a place of ownership and not just membership.
I,
Because all these
okay. I love that.
organizations,
Hmm.
memberships and ownerships are two completely different things. If you make a young person feel like they own something and that they can lead something, you can get them involved and keep them engaged. But the moment that you block a young person creativity in their minds, and I'm that type of person, the moment you tell me no, I'm probably gonna go back and do it anyway because I know that it will work for my generation and how to get my people in. But for older people, it's processes. So loosening up the process with the young people to fit this generation and to fit our time, because some of these policies been dated back to the early 2000s and 60s, and they are banged off of
Older
Obama's.
than that, older than
Hmm.
that. Yes, yes, because
So
that slogan "Take America Back Again," that's older than that. That's
you
that
said
19.
slow. Oh yeah.
It's the slogan of "Take America
Oh
Back," you know, make America great again, all that.
yeah.
We know the deal is that's code for make it wider again. And
Yeah.
yeah, and there's some issues there. So some of these policies, you are correct on that. So I'm glad you said ownership. I love that. That's another reason I started the Gallagher Chamber, because when you create something, you own it. And when you
Hmm.
own it, you control the message. You could go out there and charge people for it. And that's why I want to get our community back to create something. And the Gallagher Chamber will help you promote it so you can sell it. The
Hmm.
ownership is key. You can even own your words. If you write poetry, if you spoken word, trademark it, own it. And that's part of our education piece that we're going to be introducing this fall. We're
Hmm.
going to teach people how to create those businesses so you can own it on a grassroots level. Sometimes the system makes things appear to be complicated,
When it's not
and
that
it's not as
complicated.
complicated as you think. You want to go start a business, go to the Secretary of State website and
Hmm.
sit there and read and learn how to do it. And if you have a business idea, then do it. It's there.
Oh,
But a
watch
lot of
YouTube.
us, go ahead. What did you
Uh,
say?
t-
I'm sorry.
Watch YouTube. Harvard offer. A lot of people don't know. A lot of the
Google,
colleges,
YouTube. That's a lot
Harvard.
I do. Yeah.
Harvard offers a business certificate through YouTube, and it's free, and you don't have to pay $200. And then also, once you get that certificate, you're now eligible for a 4-year college because that's a straight college certificate. And a lot of people don't know that, and they pick at people when they say, "I'm just going to go on YouTube and learn." But now, a lot of colleges courses are now straight directly through YouTube.
I actually am taking an environmental course through Harvard, their edX program, and I can get a
Hmm.
certification through it. And it's free, but to get the certification, you pay $99. and it's
Mm-hmm.
8 weeks. I
That
got to
same
do
thing
it
on YouTube.
between
Yep.
now and August. Yeah, and that's just the first class. And now for Khan Academy, I've been a member of Khan Academy for years. There's so much
And
free
Khan
out there.
Academy is what helped me. I have dyslexia, so Khan Academy is what helped me, and to the point that we are now working on a partnership, since you brought them up, with them of creating what we call World Discover Academies. The thing is that brick and mortar schools will end up dying out after 5 to 10 years. So mostly be left in these school buildings or empty schools and innovation centers. So Khan Academy offers a completely course. So by doing that and connecting, a lot of kids don't use online. So we talked about doing educational kits that we can send to their houses. Talked about doing smaller programs and connecting with public libraries and actually having smaller classrooms, because I was that type of person when I got thrown on online. I didn't know how to do online school. I'll need somebody help teach hands on. So we need training parents of how to work the online school system. Khan
And we need,
Academy offers
yeah,
that.
and we need broadband access. This is why broadband. But I'll say
Mm-hmm.
one thing, and this is my generational thing. I do think we still need human contact. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't think brick and mortar will totally disappear. It will just be reinvented because when it's all stripped away, whether it's race, gender, whatever, we're all human, and
Mm-hmm.
humans need social touch, social skills. So it, I would not say totally get rid of brick and mortar, but it needs to be reinvented. So I used
And
to teach computers.
the
Yeah.
reinvention will have to become in a way where, because the idea behind moving brick and mortar school is to provide more funding to other areas. And by doing that, you're just getting rid of the building. That's not saying that you're getting rid of the human touch. It's like, if we develop a system where students are to get on the bus at early in the morning, go to a school building, learn inside that school building with inside that books. And fifth grade, I wish every teacher would teach like my fifth grade teacher, Miss Amy Stembridge. She came up with a better idea. Her classroom was transformed from a normal classroom, and this comes in what environmental settings is like. Um, Her classroom turned from a normal classroom to have 30 to something plus desks inside of it to a living room, a cafe, a loft area where students can go upstairs and read, and a sit area where we can sit down on the ground. Because a lot of people don't understand is that sitting in a desk, if you take your kids out of the desk and you just tell them to move 3 feet over and have them sit crisscross applesauce on the ground, their mind will snap and they want to learn just by you removing them out that desk. Every last one of my teacher students made above an A in her class. She took
Yeah.
us outside. We spend more time outside of the classroom, and we did our scientific studies. Well, we call our science teacher Miss Frizz. Her name was Miss Griffin, but she used to take us outside the classroom. We will watch Magic School Bus, go outside the classroom, and we'll study the actual grass. Bamberg had community gardens in like Bamberg School District. They made sure they had
Mhm.
community gardens at every one of their schools. Even when schools wasn't in, they connected with the local rec centers, but it wasn't just about recreation. They had literature programs where we actually sat in a park and read books, and we developed skills and communication skills. The idea is that we throw our kids in school, but there's no program. There's no transition for them when they leave out of each school. They're just thrown from one subject to the next, and they're giving testing. And at the end of the testing, it's basically saying, well, this kid is smarter than you by this many points. So this kid is going to go here and you're going to go here. But you, if that test wasn't there and they was to speak to you directly, sorry, I'm going into a whole nother conversation that just came in my
but
head.
it's
Yeah.
all interconnected because I'm listening to you and what I'm hearing is innovation.
Mm-hmm.
It takes innovative thinking, and I was as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking I was very blessed as a child that um I'm a Air Force brat. I'm a military brat. And what that gave me as a child when we were on in Guam and I had a chance to visit Japan, it opened my mind up to different cultures. And it
Mm-hmm.
stays with me to this day that I am more open to different cultures, more open to people who don't look like me, more open to learning languages, even though my first language when I really started speaking was the Guamanian dialect. It was not English. Now I can't speak it now because I'm not around people who speak it, but it's
Hmm.
made me more open to taking risk and chances. And that tends to be a more progressive thinking pattern. So you're sitting here listening to me that brick and mortar may go away with the schools. Um, I have an opinion about that, but I also recognize there's opportunity in that because
Hmm.
we don't necessarily need to tear down the schools. Why can't those schools be turned into affordable housing? We could end homelessness in America. That goes back to simply lack of will and lack of priorities and lack of
Hmm.
imagination and innovation. And that is deliberate because
Because
the
each of those
system was
classrooms.
built to benefit a small amount of people, and we lost him again, but I know he's going to come in. He's going to come back. And then we're going to have to wrap up our show, folks. We're going over time, but this is actually a good show. When he gets back, we will wrap up the show. And I'll have to bring Lawrence back up again for more discussions and hopefully get Deanna Miller Berry on with us. She was having an emergency in Bamberg, her hometown, and she was going to let me know what was going on when she gets into position. So we hope that we sent her our prayers and we hope that everything turns out all right in Bamberg. Things do happen, and hopefully Lawrence can get back on and join us, and then we can wrap up the show with some final questions and everything. And if you have any questions in the comments, oh, I see. Um, All right, let me see. Brittany, too. The older generation's reference point for change is different than millennials and younger. And I would agree with you on that. I would agree with you on that. But change is not impossible. But you are correct that the reference point is different for older generations. But once we can pivot at that reference point, we can all affect change. And we should. This needs to be multi generational, multiracial. And it always has been in history. We I truly believe that the African American demographic has been the demographic that has always held America up to its written ideals found in the Constitution. The African American demographic has always done that. But we've also done that in the multiracial alliances, and we've led to that. And that takes a lot where white folks really have to decide that they're going to change the system. They're going to have to be that one person. And we've always had allies. And that's what we need. We need allies to push it forward. But we have always led the march to hold this country to its written ideals found in our Constitution. Because the Constitution was not even written with us in mind. We were three-fifths of a human for census reasons. So the South could do exactly what it's doing now with the Electoral College determining who's president. And that is a whole nother conversation though. But Brittany, I certainly do agree with you that the older generation does have a reference point that for change that is different than millennials and younger generations. And I hope that Lawrence can get back on. It's been a minute here. Um, and we can wrap up. But it looks like he may not be able to get back on, folks. So I don't see him. Uh, so I might have to wrap up the show without him. That is just so disappointing. So Lawrence, we hope that you can get back on shortly. And if not, let me see if I can send him a message. Uh, and get him back on quickly. All right. Looks like we're going to lose him for the day, and I'm just so disappointed with that. But we're going to have to bring Lawrence back on and Deanna Miller Berry back on because this has been a fascinating conversation with what he's doing in Columbia and across the state. And we were trying to get Deontay Winchester on, also representing South Carolina Solid. These are organizations out here doing the work addressing police brutality, but not only that, showing innovation and what can be done when we all work together and connect those dots. So, thank you everybody for joining us today at a gathering place with our guests. And unfortunately, technical difficulties, we lost them, but it was a wonderful show and good information. If you want to see um, any guests, particular guests, please let us know. Send a message to Gallagher Chamber of Commerce at our Facebook page, and we will certainly look into bringing those guests on to our next shows, upcoming shows. We have some good shows coming up. If you want to start a revolution, grow your food, part two. We will bring back Jamar Brown and Brandon Upson to talk some politics with us. We're going to make that a monthly event. They've agreed to that every third Sunday. And this Sunday is Father's Day. We're going to have a special program. And so we just invite everyone to come back and join us and just to a gathering place, just as we've always gathered under the trees. We've gathered in the barber shops and the beauty salons. We've now taken that online at a gathering place where we bring the change makers in and we just talk about what's going on out in our community, how we're changing our community for the better, and we're bringing everybody along with us. So thank you folks for joining us today. We've enjoyed the show, and you have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you this Sunday at 4 o'clock for a special Father's Day program. Thank you, and have a good evening. Goodbye.